right into it. We have 3 bills that we're bringing this year. It's a short session, and we wanted to bring high-impact, thoughtful bills that we think the legislature has time to get passed. And all of these have to do with protecting vulnerable Nebraskans, and in particular, giving our office more tools to protect those who are exploited by bad actors, both here in Nebraska and elsewhere around the country. So the first one really goes towards, the first bill goes towards protecting against those who will be financially exploited. So one of the core responsibilities of our office is in the consumer protection space. You've seen our office filing lawsuits throughout this year and years previous Attorney General to be able to help go after those who would defraud or deceive consumers in Nebraska. Many times those people who are deceived lose money. And in some cases, too many cases in my view, those individuals there aren't as many tools to actually get the money after it's been taken and maybe it's been spent. And so what we're asking the legislature for is some increased tools for our office to be able to help mitigate the financial harm to those particular customers and Nebraskans, and we think by getting some of those tools, we'll be able to ensure that we can do more to get their money back. I'll just give you one example. I mentioned the idea that someone might defraud an individual, they can take that money and they might go spend it on all sorts of things before that person even knows that they've been deceived or been defrauded. By the time our office might get involved, those assets might be totally gone, or they might have some of those assets, but before the litigation process can reach a conclusion, those dollars may be spent, they may be moved, they may be unreachable by our office. One of the things we're asking for in this bill is the ability to, with the appropriate due process, the appropriate legal controls, that we'll be able to freeze some of those assets so that we can actually get some of that money back for Nebraskans. Senator Bosma will be carrying that bill, and I couldn't think of a more perfect senator to bring this particular bill. It's very litigation heavy, very process heavy. There are a number of other aspects in this particular bill. She is a former practicing attorney. You're not practicing now, I don't think. But in my time in the legislature, actually having practicing attorneys, not lawyers, was actually somewhat of a rare thing. And so Senator Bosma has a deep experience with the litigation process, and in particular in the criminal sphere. It sits on the Judiciary Committee where this bill will probably get referenced, and is a perfect partner to help us get this bill across the finish line. So thank you, Senator Bosma, for that. The second bill really goes after those who would exploit Nebraskans' health. And this ties into, you may recall earlier this year, our office filed a series, really a statewide enforcement effort, a series of lawsuits regarding Delta 8 and some of these products that are harming Nebraska kids, that are harming Nebraskans all across the state of Nebraska. And you may remember, some of you actually here were in that particular press conference. We had those copycat, we had the poster boards, we had the Cheetos that looked just like the medicated Cheetos that just looked like regular Cheetos. And we had the Nerds rope that looked just like the regular Nerds rope, but both of them were laced with chemicals that can cause harm, and in some cases death, to individuals, in particular children. You may remember we had a statewide investigation. We tested well over 100 products, and almost 90% of those products were mislabeled, many of which had incredibly high amounts of chemicals, including Delta 8, but not limited to Delta 8, that frankly put a whole large number of Nebraskans at risk. We filed those lawsuits. The reason why some of those individuals, we think that they can sell these in Nebraska is through a perceived loophole, and I emphasize perceived, from the 2018 Farm Bill that I voted for in the Nebraska legislature a few years ago that would help expand access to a commodity good, hemp. We believe, to be very clear, that loophole doesn't actually exist, but this really calls for a statewide solution and a modification of that particular bill. In going down this road, it's also clear that the other modifications to the hemp bill, generally, you may remember that was introduced in order to help create a market for this commodity product, hasn't worked out quite like the legislature intended when we passed the bill several years ago. And so this bill also includes some modifications there. I can no better sponsor for that particular bill than Senator Ibach, who's here with us today. She's vice chair of the Agriculture Committee, has a very deep background in ag, and has been, I think, in her only one session has already earned a well-earned reputation of being meticulous, thoughtful, courageous, and a very successful and effective senator, and could be more proud to have you sponsor this bill, Senator Ibach. Thank you. The last bill we'll talk about, unfortunately, Senator Armendariz, as I mentioned, is not here, but she is bringing this particular bill, and this goes towards the exploitation of very vulnerable people, including Nebraskans, in the trafficking arena. The legislature and the Attorney General's office, I think, has a very long history of working together, and frankly, a history that all Nebraskans should be proud of working together to help fight the scourge of human trafficking around the state of Nebraska. It started back with former Attorney General Doug Peterson working with former state senator, my former colleague, Senator Pansy Brooks, really developing some of the tools to help fight human trafficking in 2015. It's extended for multiple years, and we view this as an extension of that previous effort to help fight back against human trafficking. And what this bill does is really focuses on really one of the ways that these people, that victims are being exploited around the country, including here in Nebraska, where people who have been trafficked or raped, or people who have, without their consent, been engaged in sexual activity, get disseminated all over through online resources, online sources all across whether any different area of the internet. And those people are victims, and we need more tools to help protect those victims. And this bill provides additional resources and tools for our consumer protection group to help hold those companies that would disseminate these videos or other content to account and get them to stop. So we think this is a really critical tool for us to help protect these very vulnerable Nebraskans and other victims all around the country. And so that's the third bill. Senator Armendariz is not here. Those are the three bills that we're bringing this year. All three, we think, will have a significant impact for Nebraskans, particularly vulnerable Nebraskans, and those who would be otherwise exploited. With that, I'll stop, and we'll happy to take any questions, and I'll sort of quarterback the mics to the senators as we get questions. So.